when we start working with value, your phone can really help you see values that maybe you can't in life. It's not that you can't see them, it's just that you're not used to seeing them. So if you take a photograph of your still life and you open it up in your Photos app, you should have a way to be able to edit those photos. So if I go to edit here on my iPad, the same kind of functions I would have on my iPhone, one of the things we'd want to do is get rid of the color here. Now there's admittedly not a lot of color that you see here, but once we start working with very brightly colored objects, it can be harder to see value again because we're not sensitively trained to look for it, right? So this use of the app is a great way to help train us so that we can see it in life, right? And it's a great way to clarify what we're seeing. So the first thing, as I said, we want to get rid of the color. Now, if I go over here to the left and go grayscale, you can see I can get rid of color this way. But of course, I even have 3 grayscale modes that are going to adjust what the values look like. So what I want to do instead is leave it on the original color and desaturate the photograph. By scrolling to saturation, it allows me to make the colors either really, really bright, or the opposite of very intense color is completely desaturated color. Now it's only grays, and this should be a little closer to maybe what we're seeing with the naked eye. So this helps us see lights and darks, but also we can make adjustments that may make those lights and darks make more sense. All of these adjustments, contrast, shadows, highlights, brilliance, exposure, etc., they're all going to do different things that can help kind of clarify what you're seeing. So if, for instance, I use exposure, you can see that by making the exposure much, much brighter, I can see the darkest values on not only the egg, but the shadow and even the left side of the ground. You can see how the right side is very washed out, how the left side is very, very light gray. So that tells me that the light is from the right and that everything is getting darker as it moves left. If I lower the exposure or underexpose it, you can see that I've made it all darker overall. And all of these contrasts can work in combination with one another. Let's do shadows here. If I limit the shadows, let's increase the shadows. I'm going to use brightness here to make it darker overall. I'll use the black point to make it darker still. Here again, you can see where the shadow side of the egg starts, where the terminator line is. We can see the reflected light on the underside of the egg and how light that is, as well as the right side of the egg. And then we can also see in the negative space again how it is lighter on the right side and increasingly darker moving from the right bottom to the top left. So these adjustments really help kind of clarify the subtle things that I'm saying. Now, if I say, okay, let's accept those adjustments, I say done, at least on my photo application, if I go back into edit, it will ask me whether I want to revert or whether I want to continue to make more adjustments, and I can get it right back to the original. So use your photo app on your phone to not only help you compose the arrangement within your picture plane, but also see the values and start to ask yourself, what is lighter, what is darker? As we're drawing value, that's a real important question, because we might see something, oh, well, that's light, and oh yeah, that's light too. Well, which is lighter? If we zoom in on the photograph, you can see, and this makes it, because it's more abstract, it maybe makes it a little easier to see, we can see the right side of the egg, of course, is lighter than the negative space around it. It's a little darker. Well, how much darker? This is more moderate contrast. And then as we move our eye along the right side of the egg towards the bottom of the egg, there's a point where the values become very, very close. The value of the egg is very similar to the value of the ground it's sitting on. And then we see a shift that happens here, where the negative space is now lighter and the ground of the shadow, and of course the part of the egg, is darker. So it's how much contrast. We have strong contrast on the egg versus the ground here. We have moderate contrast here. And we have very low contrast here. So as you're drawing, you're always asking yourself, okay, which shape, which value is darker, and by how much? High contrast, moderate contrast, or low contrast?